Is it going to put this over here? Did I just mess that up? It should go where we said we were going to.
We did set it up for a specific position.
Where do I hit recorder or is it recording?
No, it's already recording.
It looks like we're good.
Dude, this thing is crazy.
Hey, Alex Sanfilippo here. Welcome back to Podcasting Made Simple. I am so excited today to be joined by two of my close personal friends that I actually met through podcasting, but we've become really close. I really love these guys. I got Luis and Fonzi here. Fellas, welcome. Hey.
I got a little confused because you said Luis looking at me and then you said Fonzi and you looked at my brother.
I wanted to, okay, you both are Luis, and I wanted to call you all that, but I know that when you're recording, we go Luis and Fonzi. Sorry, everybody.
That's so good.
That is right. Original Luis here. Alex, thank you so much for having us, man. It's a pleasure and an honor. Dream come true.
Yeah, I owe you an apology, first of all, because yesterday we went fishing and I promised you we were going to catch a big catfish and we didn't catch anything. So it's a public apology.
I got a little bit of a chip on my shoulder today, but it's okay. We're here recording. And by the way, this studio it's these guys right here, Biz Bros, Podcast Studio Suites. They were kind enough to open up their doors to us today. So thank you guys. I'm really excited to dive into this
thank
today.
you.
Absolutely.
I'm excited.
Sweet. So I got to share one little fact here. I don't know the year, but I was on your podcast years ago, and you all said this guy's got the best hair in podcasting. Fast forward years later, I come back on your show with a group of people and someone goes, Alex has almost no hair left. And so like for everyone, that's how long we've known each other. That's how long we've been doing this podcasting thing.
Please welcome Master Community Builder and best haircut in Jacksonville.
Alex is starting to lose his hair though.
Anyway, you guys are two of like you guys bring the best energy in podcasting. Since the beginning, like that first interview I did with you guys, I still hold it as one of my favorite ever done. It's just always a good time to create with you guys. So
thank you, man. Means a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I told you at the beginning, but I haven't jumped on a podcast in about 2 months.
2 months.
I became a dad, and I've been a little busy. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah.
My comeback here with you. That's exciting.
He has a lot of words kind of like bottled up. So in case you hear more of Fonzi than anybody else, that's why.
It's been 2 months. So
here's a question though. Did you continue listening to podcasts? And I ask because you guys consume a lot of podcasts and you all do something I think that's really unique. You don't just listen to like learn from the podcast, but to learn about how the podcast works. Did you continue that trend at least?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay.
I did listen to a lot of podcasts.
Great. So I want to talk to you guys about this because the three of us have seen a lot of what works in podcasting and also what doesn't work in podcasting. And today specifically, I want to address one of the big questions that comes up both from host and from guest, which is I'm not getting any results from having a podcast or I'm not getting any results from being a podcast guest. And I'm just going to kind of go right into what I think it is. It's the call to action that's the problem. It's not the content itself. Typically, the content can be really good. Like I know a bunch of indie creators that are just absolutely incredible. The problem comes into play when we're telling listeners to take action. And that's where we either miss it, we like by not doing it, or we tell them, here's 30 things, right? We'll get into all that. But the idea of a call to action is what I want to discuss with you guys today. So any initial thoughts on that before we dive into it?
Yeah, 100%. I think maybe listeners are overwhelmed by the options that they are presented. And also the creator itself is overwhelmed maybe by opportunity, right? Because we talked about, not only sponsors, so there's a call to action to go check them out, but then if you have a product, what product do I send them to, right? And it's interesting because it's probably one of the platforms that you have those options. You have pre-roll, mid-roll, post-roll, you're doing the episode organically, like what do we do? And then maybe in our heads, like limiting to like one call to action might be very intimidating.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think from my point of view, an idea that has been very attractive to me lately, and by lately I mean the last probably year or so, is the fact that every business is pretty unique, right? Every podcast is going to be very unique. So I don't want to sit here and be like, you should do this. This is the one good call to action that you should take. Yeah. I think everybody should take this, with a grain of salt and actually test the thing, right? Like my brother, he says, approach it as a hypothesis, right? Like what is, if I do X, will I, see Y results? And then you go test it out and then you're going to have a baseline. And off of that, then you can go on and improve, right? I think, the tips that we're going to share, like all the things that we're going to be talking about, I think is going to be a good, I guess, like initial, kind of like first step for people to craft some good, call to actions. But then at the end of the day, it's like, all right, what is your hypothesis? Like, you need to go and test it out. Make the same call to action for, I don't know, 10 episodes, go back into the data. What is the percentage of people that actually visited this site due to the podcast? Can I improve that? All right, next hypothesis, let's test it out.
Yeah, these are both really good points. I mean, there's the overwhelm of, for both the host and the guest, of like, hey, I have options to put 20 things in here. Hey, guest, give us everything, right? And for you, there's no one size fits all. Like, and I totally agree with that on both sides of the microphone. Like, test it, being willing to let it evolve and grow as you grow. So what we are going to go through today, though, are 6 steps for creating a really effective call to action as a host or as a guest. And so we'll dive in each of these, and we'll kind of all share our perspective a little bit here. But I'm excited to dive into this because, yes, it's going to be different for everybody, but there are some clues, like success leaves clues, right, that will really help you figure out how to frame this out. So the very first one I have is kind of like it's point 1, but it's a pre-point, and it's to develop know, like, and trust on the podcast episode. We've probably all seen this happen before, where somebody like wants to hold back because they know their call to action is coming. Kind of like they want it to feel more like a sales pitch than like a value-adding episode. I think that's a huge no-go. I actually had one guest on my podcast. This is going back years. And I asked him about a point on chapter 4 in his book. And he literally said, you know what? Like, I really like kind of spilled the secret sauce in that chapter. So I'm gonna tell everyone to do is I can't share that here, but buy the book, you'll be able to learn it. And listen, like, I was like, okay, well, we'll move on to chapter 6, right? Like, but like the reality is, I know people are listening are like, that feels icky, right? Like that didn't develop know, like, and trust. That tells me you're hiding something from me. What is it, right? And so I always just tell people, like, give it all away. You want it so you can develop that really strong relationship, that bond with the listener. As a host and guest, we both have that opportunity to do that, so that then when you have a call to action, they are now primed and ready to listen and to respond well. Any thoughts on this, guys?
Yeah.
I think I agree 100%. I think I personally was one of those that were like subconsciously trying to be like, okay, not sketchy, but it's like, okay, it's pretty intimidating, right? Like when, let's say you have an informational based business, right? Where you might have your own frameworks, right? There's that fear that when you're going to share, be like, okay, what's then, like, what do I actually sell, right? And I think that comes maybe as a newbie, maybe at that point in the business. But like you said, the more you share, the more you develop that trust, or how we call it, ART, authority, relevancy, and trust. And then they're still going to listen. They'll be like, this applies to me. And then what's next? And then the what next is like read the chapter, or like the entire book, or the course, or whatever comes after. And I think that's good. And we've seen it over and over and over. And the people that at the top, that's what we've seen it happen, right? Like the more they share, the more it comes back to them.
Yeah, I think that comes from a scarcity mindset, right? It's like, oh, if I put this out there, somebody might steal it and use it in their own stuff. I'm like, guess what? Flashing is like, you're probably not the only one that does that one thing. Like maybe you have your own unique mechanism, but it can be probably somewhat similar to what other person does, and they just change the name of it, or you just change the name of it at the end of the day. So, I mean, it's more than ever important to just build that rapport inside of the episode. People are gonna connect to you, to your personality, like who you are. Like, sure, your product can be selling some sort of transformation, but they're gonna be asking themselves, like, can this person, like, do I see myself trusting this person to deliver that transformation at the end of the day? And if you're somebody that is holding up secrets, they're gonna be like, what are they gonna hold up if I buy into their product, right? Like, am I gonna have to purchase, the $100,000 mastermind for them to, sell me the next thing that I need? Or are they gonna like pour openly and just share and like genuinely help me out on the next step that I need to take?
Fonzi, a little bit of experience there, I'm hearing. I don't know. Has this happened to you?
Am I resentful? I'm like holding the microphone.
Like, I'm at the $80,000 level. I'm not doing it again, right? Like,
I think as a consumer, we've had very positive experience, but also very negative experience. And that's, once you're in there, you're like, man, like maybe that's something that we don't do as a business, right? That it's crazy. We have consultations here in the studio, and people are like, well, let's say we want to launch a podcast. I'm like, sweet, here is a blog with all the information. Follow this in like 30 minutes. You'll be able to do it in, right there, like the same day. And then it's like, well, if you want us to implement it for you because you don't want to do it or you don't have the time, perfect, we can do that. But here's the thing, and do it. And it's incredible because people are like, oh, they appreciate that. And then more often than not, they come back and they end up buying the product.
It's great, man. I love that. All right, sake of time, we're going to keep on moving here. Moving on to number 2. This is kind of like getting into it. And you kind of hinted this a little bit, but it needs to be singular. A good call to action is going to be singular. And so both for the host and the guest. And I see this done wrong a lot. host asks for ratings, reviews, subscribers, follow me here, go to my website, share the like all the things, right? And then the guest, typically maybe the guest only wants to have one, but the host will go on and be like, okay, well, where else can they find you? And so it kind of, I get the idea is like, hey, here's everything, but the reality is it just needs to be one thing. Like it's called a call to action, not a call to actions. Right? It's called to something singular, something specific, because that's what we can remember as human beings. Thoughts on this, guys?
Yeah, I mean, personally, my mind goes to a confused mind always says no, or almost always says no, right? And there's I feel like a study. I don't know who it should be attributed to, so I apologize in advance. But they did a study with consumers buying jam, and they had this group. They offer them 3 jams, and then another group they offer them 20 different flavors. And the group that had the least amount of flavors bought more than the other one, right? Because you get overwhelmed. You're like, well, okay, what do I do? Me personally, that happens when I have a lot of options. I'm like, geez, this is crazy. Like the other day, actually, an ad popped up, and I love going into ads and seeing the offers. And the offer, I thought it was pretty decent. But then I scrolled down to the bonus side of the offer, and there were like 20 bonuses. And I'm like, geez, do I need all this stuff? I'm like, I'm overwhelmed. I'm like, I'm out of here. And I think it's the same exact thing with this call to actions. Like, people will easily get overwhelmed if they are presented with too many options, right? And so you got to be considerate of your guests, right? If they are there to also promote something, whether that is a course, a book, whatever it is, like give them a genuine opportunity. And I know you do something really cool with your guests to like promote their stuff, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, at the end of the day, I think it's like KISS, right? Keep it simple, stupid at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, people are in there with you listening to that. So apart from singular, it's also relevant to the topic that you're talking about, right? So, especially in our show, for example, we talk about many frameworks and many stages of like content and profit. And that's something that openly I'll say, like we've struggled to be like, okay, where do we actually send people, right? And then there was a stage recently where we talked a lot about the monetization side of it. And the call to action was, hey, bistros.co/monetize. And that has been one of the most successful ones because it was like from the domain to like the solution that was in there, that was relevant and the feedback was great. So be like, okay, perfect. And maybe in the next few episodes, we're not talking about the monetization side, but maybe we're like production. Well, what's the relevant call to action for that relevant single call to action?
So that's the next point I want to get into here, which I love.
I'm like mind reading.
Just way ahead of us. All. But I call it relatability, but I think that relevance is probably a better word for it. I should have rewritten that. That's good.
I cannot say your word.
Right? Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Spanish.
But relatability, relevance, that's really key. Here's the thing. Like if you're on a podcast, it's all about golf, and you're talking about golf for 20 minutes, and then you want to sell your like high ticket coaching package. You're like, okay, am I coaching for golf or coaching for business? Like what? How? Why? Right? Like you want to go on that. That's a great, first off, sign to guests specifically to get on the right shows. Like go on the shows that are going to align with your call to action, but also align your call to action, right? So like maybe don't go on golf podcast if that's not what your product or service is. Or perhaps if you're the host, like find the thing, right? Like you said, you guys did a series on monetization. Your call to action was monetization driven. Anyone who's listening to the episode, you're developing know, like, and trust from a monetization perspective with them. Yeah. If you tell them the one thing I want you to do now is to go learn more about monetization, that's a pretty easy flow for somebody to follow. There's not a lot of like stretching of the mind that has to happen there. Yeah. And so I love that you brought that up. And that to me, that again, that's point 3. Fonzi, any follow up to that?
I mean, just be coherent, right? And just put yourself in the shoes of the person that is listening, right? It's like, if they listen to this after listening to the whole episode or, whatever you place your call to action, are they going to be confused, right? So, for example, a coherent call to action that I've seen from other podcasters at the beginning of the episode where they still haven't delivered any value is, hey, if you're enjoying this episode, make sure you share it with your friends or somebody that you believe this is going to help them out. That is a coherent call to action because it's like, okay, well, I can get behind this. You're prepping them. It's like, if you find value in this, just make sure you share it out into the world. But then after 1 hour of X topic, if you hit a call to action with something totally different, offering guitar lessons or whatever, and you're talking about monetizing content, then obviously that people are just going to be confused. Like, wait, what? Why do I need the guitar lessons for?
Right.
I came here for totally something else.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So the other point I want to mention here is I think that Evergreen is really important. when it comes to this.
Yeah.
And a great example, and we've probably all had this happen. You have someone come on your podcast that's an author, pre-release, and they're really big on, hey, I want to mention like a pre-release discount code. And I had one guest on my podcast, this is going back many years, and I really didn't know how to handle it, but they were like so forward about like, hey, you told me the date, that's pre-release of the book, you got to mention the pre-release, you got to like mention the code and stuff like that. Well, 2 weeks later, the book was out. And so like now this whole pre-release stuff, I'm getting emails, people are like, how do I get the discount? I'm like, oh, you can't, it's out. I'm like, wait a minute, why did I do that, right? Like, what was I thinking? Like, we got to think about the future as well. And like, is it going to hold up on an evergreen perspective? And for me as a host, the way that I've done that is I use dynamic insertion. And I bust out my phone here. I don't know, you guys don't have to direct me on how close this needs to be, but I want everyone to hear this. What I use is dynamic insertion. So what I do is I only have a call to action on my podcast for me when it's relevant. And right now it's relevant is the time of recording this, a new version of our monthly industry report came out. And so for 4 days, it's on my podcast before my introduction. I use dynamic insertion. I press a button basically, and it's automatically in every single one of my episodes. Yeah. So I'm just gonna play it because it's like a few seconds long because I think
perfect.
Yeah, and you'll tell me if I'm like too close or whatever. So
you gotta put it as close as possible.
Okay.
Hey, Alex here. This month's Independent Podcasters Report is now available. To see important podcasting-related insights like listenership data, active versus inactive podcast numbers, industry download milestones, and many other data points that matter for both podcast hosts and guests, please visit podmatch.com/report. And now let's get into today's episode. You're listening to
So it rolled into my regular intro.
Yeah.
And the reason I like dynamic insertion as a host like that is, again, that's not relevant in 10 days from now. Like, right? It's done. But right now it is relevant. And I like putting the beginning before my introduction because anyone who's a long-term listener, they're used to hearing that I don't know what to call it, like that sound and like me saying you're listening to Podcasting Made Simple. When they hear, hey, Alex here, they already know that, like, hold on.
It's a message, PSA.
There's something else here. This is not what I usually hear. And your mind is like, hold on, I need to hear whatever this is. So anyway, we need to keep on moving. Do you guys have like a quick, you look like you had something there.
Well, to me, I think that's super smart, especially for a lot of the, let's say, new podcasters. Maybe they're getting into this dynamic ad insertion might be something that could be intimidating because not a lot of the platforms offer that. So I love that you brought it up because it solves a big problem for a lot of people. So I would just recommend people like, hey, just Google dynamic ad insertion. What happens? Like, where do I do it? And if you are in a platform that doesn't offer it, start considering, be like, where can I go and do that?
Yeah, that's good.
I think that's super clever, honestly. I mean, your business evolves, your products, your offers are going to evolve, right? Like, why don't have something that allows you to change those in all your episodes? Because I'm guessing, hopefully, the person that's listening to this, they understand that a podcast has a long tail, right? You're going to keep getting listeners on those episodes, hopefully years from when you first publish it, right? So you want to definitely make it relevant for them at that moment on how you can help them. And that still serves your business at the end of the day.
Yeah. Those are some good points there. And the last thing I'll mention on this is, because I don't want to go too deep into it, but I like that it leaves room for my guests' call to action. When I don't have mine in there all the time, there literally is just one call to action for a guest. I think that's a really great thing because there's only one thing on that episode for the most part, unless it's like my industry report, right? That's going to need to happen. So moving on to point 4 now. Point 4 is simple to understand. And listen, I think that this is where you laugh a little bit because I think so many people get it wrong. If I have to spend 5 minutes explaining my call to action before I can give it, I don't know if I know it well enough, but also I can't expect other people to know it. Like, it has to be simple to understand. And I always say it should have the aha moment, which is like somebody hears like, aha. Like, example, when I'm describing PodMatch to people, I'll go through my little bit of a spiel, but I always say it works kind of like a dating app, but instead of connecting you for dates, it connects you for podcast interviews. And every time people go, I get it. I get that, right? Like, I understand that. You want someone to hear your short call to action, like simple to understand means it needs to be short, but they need to be like, oh, I know exactly what that is. Like, I totally get what that is. To me, that kind of makes or breaks it. Like, what do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I've told you this before, but I love the it's like type of framework, right? Because you immediately help somebody visualize that one thing that might be common, they will probably know about, and then immediately put your thing on top of it. And like, wow, okay, it's very easy to understand. And you want to create those images, those feelings when you're sharing your call to action. Now, I think my opinions has changed a little bit in here. That simple doesn't necessarily means that it has to be short, right? And the reason I say it is because there's different levels of intent, right? If I not everybody's going to consume 100% of your episode. But if you have somebody that consumes 100% of your episode, I think you can maybe take a risk. And again, it would be a test, right? By sharing a longer call to action that really makes them feel, maybe the pain points. You can probably take more time to highlight some of the pain points that, the other side of the offer, the other side of the call to action is solving. And, they already gave you a lot of time. They invested in you. You can probably build rapport with them. Unlike somebody that, they might just consume the first 30% of the episode, you might want your call to action to be shorter in there. So depending on where you place it, I think, simple, I don't necessarily believe that simple has to be short, right? Definitely simple, but then, you can play with it depending on the level of engagement and rapport you build with your audience.
Yeah.
Man, that's insightful. You've been thinking that for 2 months while you've been taking off, right? You've just been right there, like rehearsing in the mirror.
That was my only thought I have for 2 months.
Guys, when he comes back to content is profit, we're going to have some fire content. Just get ready, man.
So I passed the test.
Yes. I personally like a lot of personalized domains. So like if the domain itself already gives a hint of like what's coming, it helps people remember that. So, whether that's like a / or a short domain, but.
So real quick, you actually, which is the next point, easy to follow, was the next point. And you literally mean the URL, like the website that you're sending people to?
Yeah, and we can talk about it in detail.
No, please, let's go ahead. This is a good segue.
But I have a second point too, like with piggybacking of what Fonzi said about the end of the episode, right? Think about the movie, like Marvel movies, right? And they have these like after credit scenes, and the loyal fans like stay there and they watch all the credits, or they're on their phones watching all the credits and all this. Or they Google, is there an after credit scene, right? So you could also you can prepare the audience to something that's coming. Be like, hey guys, by the way, at the end of the episode we have something special, surprise that's coming, and you could put it at the beginning of the episode like, oh, what's coming? So either they listen or they can skip to that where it's like a more detailed stuff. So. That could be like a very interesting test that you can do. Imagine a graph at the beginning of the episode, right? The most amount of people, but then maybe the least amount of like total listens, for that. And as the episode progresses, that audience is gonna go down normally. That's the graph of the podcast. At the end, those guys are your true fans. So it's like, what can we hide at the end of the episode that's like a true Easter egg that every single time they come in? I think that would be like a super interesting test to perform.
Dude, that's really smart. I'm actually going to try that one. That's great. I like it.
Hear me out.
Oh,
a secret portal on your website that requires a secret code, let's say a 10-letter word, and throughout a series of 10 episodes, you drop the letter, as a secret, and people type it. And at the end of the series, if they have the whole word, they get like something cool on the other side of the portal.
Yo, this is fun. You're gamifying podcasting.
Gamifying it.
Come on. That's fun, guys. I like this.
Thank you,
is
Taylor
good.
Swift.
Wait, what?
She does that across all her albums.
I had no idea.
I had no idea either.
I had no idea.
I'm not a Swiftie. I mean, we know you are.
My wife is a Swiftie.
So, okay, you kind of already segue to this fifth point, easy to follow. And that's when you were mentioning the URL. So I didn't mean to cut you off on that. I just want to make sure I was understanding. But go ahead, please riff on that.
Yeah, I mean, big fan, right? Like at the end of the day, it's like where we got to put ourselves in the shoes of the people who are listening to the podcast. Maybe they're listening and they don't have a computer in front of them, right? They cannot go to the description and click it, right? Like think about the people that might be driving. I am a podcast consumer. Every time I'm driving, that's what I listen, right? Or you're doing an activity, or you're running, or you're exercising, right? Like what's easy for that person? And I think another good test to do is like, okay, survey your audience. Like, hey, what do you guys listen to my podcast, right? At the end of the day, your email list. Are you listening to my podcast? Where? And then you can find these locations and then you can adapt that. So what I like about domains is like if you have a simple and sticky domain, people are going to remember that, right? Almost like a jingle, right? Like if you have a jingle, even better with the domain, right? But something like, for us, I think that helped a ton. The bizros.co/monetize. That word, it solves a pain because it's helping people solve that problem. That's why they come to our podcast. So be like, oh, it's easy peasy. It's like their website and monetize, right? And then we have another one that we'll share a little bit later. But I'm a big fan because it's very easy to remember. And then when you get home or whatever, you'll be like, okay, perfect. This guy said that. I'm just gonna type it.
Yeah. I'm going to go with the example of our main website, bizbros.co. Every time we share, we're like, it's .co, not .com, no M. Like you have to explain it. And if you have to explain, it's like, it's probably not that simple, to follow. we get people to send us email and we never get them because they put .com at the end, right? So like, can you make something sticky? Like you mentioned, I like the ones that have humor as well, so a little play of word or whatever. I think those are fun. But I think they align to your personality, right? If it's somebody that, maybe they don't like to have that much fun on their podcast, they might put just something totally
serious
simple.
podcast guest.
Secret code at the end of the episode.com. Go there to redeem your secret code at the end of the episode.com.
And so I like this. And I think that we can actually go beyond just the URL. Like I've seen some people do this really successfully from a guesting standpoint with SMS marketing, so text message.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like, hey, shoot me a text.
Yeah.
And they give them like the quick number. And like, I think that's a really efficient way to do it as well. Like I'm all for having a great URL as well. Any of that stuff that just someone can remember. And even better if it's reinforced by the content in the episode, right? Like if it's already what you're talking about, you're like, man, I can remember that very easily.
Yeah.
Real quick, my name's Alex Sanfilippo. I have never told anyone ever to go to alexsanfilippo.com. I own the domain, yes. No one can say it or spell it. That's not a good call to action.
I still struggle to spell your
So
last
do I,
name.
all right?
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah, I mean, I think traditional marketing, if you see like billboards and like marketing where attention spans might have to be like very like they're compressed. Like, what are they doing? 1-800 a word, right? And like, or you're driving by, like, what caught your attention? It's like, how can we model something like that in our shows? Because it's very similar.
Yeah, I think it goes back to a confused mind always says no, right? If you have a confusing domain there at the end, people are going to be like, forget about it. So keeping it simple, short, sticky. Simple, short, and sticky.
That's it. I'm going to move along. Point 6.
Yes. Sure, sticky. Okay. That's more like a Tinder.
All right.
Yeah, that might be point number 6. Y'all ready? We're going to bring it back right here.
Yes, sir.
So value adding and engaging. Point number 6. And to me, this is what happens when they follow through to the call to action. So this is like where you land, right? So it's like, cool, I like that sticky domain. I'll just call it that. I like this website they sent me to. I like seeing what we've got here. And what's important is when they get there is that they feel that it's continuing to add value on what it already was. Like you want to see that it's in alignment. You don't want any confusion with, did I just land on the right website? Is this the right place or did I go the wrong place? Like you want to be like, yep, this is what I just listened to. This is what I just saw. You want to immediately reinforce. The other thing I always say is I don't think immediately it should have anything. It shouldn't require an email address or phone number immediately or credit card, anything like that. Like there should be some value presented there before that happens. I always go back to the example, and I've been married way too long to use this example. I'm going to do it anyway. Like if I go to a bar and I want to get a girl's phone number, I don't say, give me your phone number, then I'll buy you a drink. Like at least for me, that would have never worked. Like maybe for some people they got it. I don't know. But for me, I would have to be like, here's a drink. Let me talk to you a little bit. Can I get your phone number, right? And I think some of us were like, hey, give us your phone number and then we'll give you some value. And I just don't think that's the way to do it on these pages. You want to reinforce it once again to help somebody know in their mind, I made the right decision coming here today.
Yeah.
This is the right decision for me.
I think that's an interesting idea, especially in our world, because some people might consider.
Sounds like you asked for the number first.
No. No. I mean, if you're online dating, you ask for the number first and then you ask them out. hey, no saying. No, but jokes aside, right? Like some people, and this is an interesting debate because some people might consider that the episode was a value, so then people can go to these sites and get it. So, like I said, treat it as a hypothesis. What do you do if you have a page with information first, provide a ton of value, and then you ask for that, versus what happens if you ask for that information first, right? And it all comes down also to you as a creator or as an entrepreneur. Like, are you a value first person? Yes, absolutely. But there's also people that care probably about optimizing this as much as possible. So where do you fall? And it comes down to understanding like who you are as a creator or a business owner, or like what do you want to give? What's the energy that you want to share with the people?
Yeah.
But that will be an interesting concept because everything that, at least that we've seen is like, as soon as the value is, let's say in the content, let's say you're sharing 100% there, once they get to that page is because they've consumed that, for example, right? And that's the path. But that would be super interesting to see, be like, perfect. Yeah, I mean, maybe the headline is already providing a ton of value. It's like, hey, click here, you download that if you want the second part, like something like, I don't know. That will be like a very cool test.
Yeah, I mean, to expand on what you said, I agree with what you said, that some people might perceive like the main episode to be, the main value, and then you wanna build your list, and you hear that everywhere, especially right in marketing. It's like you want to build your email list. If one day Facebook shuts down and you don't have access to anybody else, it's like, okay, it's not gonna, it's probably not gonna
It's
happen.
been 20 years.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been
Gotta let that
happening
one
since
go.
Facebook popped up. You know, but at the end of the day, it's like what I said at the beginning. Every business is different, right? Like your needs are gonna be different. You might be at a stage in your business where you need a high volume of conversations. So maybe your thing is like, hey, dude, like send me this message and I'll send you the resource for free. You don't need to opt in, but now you have access to that conversation with somebody, right? Or you might be actually in a stage where you are, you know, trying to see if an offer actually works and calls people's attention, and you want them to vote with their wallet. So you're actually taking them to a sales page of, you know, a low ticket product or something else. Like, look into your business, find what are the needs that you have, and like make it relevant to that, you know. And I know it's a little contradictory to we're talking about simplicity and, you know, not complicate things, make it simple. But I think it all starts by, you know, looking a little bit inwards into your business and say, okay, what do I need? What are my needs right here? It's like, can I align my calls to action where I want to lead people to that thing?
You know what could be an interesting test? Almost like, you know, hey, you receive, you know how you get sometimes like you receive this service and just pay what you want, like donation style. So imagine that as an opt-in page, and the donation is the email or the phone number. So you put everything optional and be like, hey, just click here. You can download it for free. We're not going to ask for information, but if you want to
get spam for the rest of your life, put your email in here.
That's it.
no, but
I see
like
what you're saying.
in all seriousness,
Yeah.
right? Because like maybe that triggers people to share their information. I don't know. Like that would be super cool to be like, you know, instead of like this being like a must, I get turned off every time I have to put in my phone number on a form, for example, right? I'd be like,
The phone number. It's like,
I don't know if I want this, right? So that will be also very interesting. Be like, perfect.
or
Like, donation wise,
you can be like, if you want chapter 4, put your email in here.
Back to that chapter 4. I don't know what it said. I read the book. I read that book.
I want to know.
Guys, this has been, I learned from this today. And that's one of the things I love about you guys. And I think that as we kind of bring this thing to a close, like our own call to actions, I feel like we're going to have them here. And like, pressure's on today, by the way. Like, you know, like pressure's
Which
on.
one?
Like, which one? No, I just mean like we just talked about it. But like, I love the unique mind you guys have. I love the way that you guys approach podcasting. And I'm going to do your call to action for you today, because I think one of those powerful ways for a guest to convert well with a call to action is for the host to do it for them. And so hosts, I also think it's a pro move. Like your listeners know, like, and trust you already. They're just learning that with their guest. Maybe you be the one. And so like I wrote this down here because this is kind of like my thoughts on what you guys do. But you guys have created a community that also focuses on accountability for savvy business creators, like people that are the podcasters or YouTubers even, I guess, right? Like both those individuals,
creators too,
video creators, like the people that are actually creating content and just that want access to the mind that you guys have. And so I wrote down the URL. I know it's like about to be public. So by the time this is out, it'll be public. So see, no pre-order, right? But it's businesscreator.club, businesscreator.club. And I think what you guys are doing is just like I said, I learned today, like inside that community, I know there's gonna be so many like aha moments for people to be able to say, yeah, I'm taking my business to an even savvier level than it already is. Do you guys have anything to add to that before we end?
First of all, thank you.
Thank you.
For that. Second, we just hosted our people party.
Nice.
For the club yesterday. At
Yeah, it
the
was
time
fun.
of this recording, it was awesome. We had about 20 business creators in there. It was a great time. It turned out to be like a great networking opportunity for everybody. Everybody's like, oh my God, you live across me. What? Let's connect. Let's do some business. So I'm just very excited. This is something new that we've talked about it for like 2 years. And thank you for helping us put it out there.
Yeah,
sure.
This is a text message I sent to my brother the other day. And I'm going to, actually I sent it in English. I was going to say I'm going to translate because I sent it in Spanish. But no, I sent it in English. It says, there's nothing that bothers me more than a course with all info and no action, right? And I think it's the same with like communities and what we're trying to build here, which is not just about the information, but it's like help people take the step that they need to take. Because I've been in that position, right, where I love consuming information. I love reading books. I love, watching YouTube videos and all these things. But I think I did it for long enough. There's like a diminishing returns curve to consuming information, right? At first, you start consuming it. You're excited. I can certainly do this. And I think that's the point where you need to start taking action. But a lot of people just keep consuming information, right? And maybe finding out other things. And then all of a sudden you're overwhelmed. It's like, this is way too much. Can I actually do that? And then like doubt starts creeping in and your bias to take action actually starts decreasing. And then eventually you just like are in a hole down there just consuming information, trying to find that motivation that you had, you know, maybe a couple years ago, months ago, whatever time frame it is that you're experiencing. I've been there, you know, so I texted that to my brother the other day. I was like, this is what we need to do. Like, this is what I want, like, the community to be like, you know, the people that we surround ourselves with. Like, I want them to be like, these guys, sure, they got great info, but they help us take action, right? Like, whatever it is, or hypotheses, we're testing them thanks to them or with them, you know, and see if it actually works or not, and helping us grow our business.
Yeah, that's great. And for the PodMatch community and Podcasting Made Simple community, we believe the same thing, action, right? And if anyone's ever heard me speak, even when I do something solo, I'm always looking like, what's the takeaway that somebody can implement? So after listening to this whole idea of call to actions, having it singular, having it focused, everything we talked about, what is your next step? And I encourage you, if you're watching or listening to this, don't just be like, cool, great information, I know what to do. No, go do it. Start implementing, start learning, start growing. Luis, Fonzi, I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Alex. I definitely don't go to alexsanfilippo.com.
Please don't. Thanks again, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Alex.